Philip Van Cleave.
Wow, look at you guys. All right, appreciate you guys coming out. What a beautiful day we had for you guys here in Virginia, and in this case, DC. Looking back on this, I was thinking about what I was going to say, and I think we kind of look a little bit again at our history. You know, over the last 150 years, we've had major portions of our right to keep and bear arms stripped away from us through gun control laws. The roots of those gun control laws in America began around the time of the Civil War, even before the Civil War, as a way to control freed slaves. The establishment didn't want blacks to have guns, so they created Jim Crow laws to disarm them while leaving whites with their guns. Just as shamefully, the Supreme Court, just before the Civil War, ruled in the Dred Scott versus Sanford case that freed slaves could not be considered citizens, because if they were, they'd be able to own guns and be able to take them anywhere they went. In so many words, the Supreme Court said, we can't have that now, can we? But today, the Black Caucus in Congress favors most gun control measures. I don't get it. You have, other people. You have Chuck Schumer. I know I should have warned you before I said that. Here's another one. Dianne Feinstein. They're both Jewish. And I don't understand what part of the Second World War they missed. I don't get it. And Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy, her husband was tragically murdered in a gun-free zone on a train traveling in New York. So she got into Congress. So what did she do? She decided to create more gun-free zones. Now, was she expecting a different result from gun-free zones? I don't know. I don't get it. But here's a fact for you, and you've heard it before, but it's true. Gun control isn't about guns. It's about control. The problem that we have is we're the kind of people, those of you sitting out here, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, there's a mixture here, I guarantee it. All looking to protect some of our very basic civil rights. But we don't want to control everybody else's life. I don't know about you, I have no interest in controlling any of your lives. I want you to be able to go about your life, do whatever you want. If you're not harming anybody else, have fun, knock yourself out. Doesn't matter. And consequently, for people like you, it's hard to fathom what it's like to live in the mind of somebody who's obsessed with controlling people, that wants to be able to dictate to them what they can eat and where they can go and if they can own a gun or not. Whether God should be mentioned anywhere in the government, whatever it is, there are people that live to control others. I don't get that either. But it doesn't matter if I get it, they're there, and we have to deal with it. And originally, gun control, as I mentioned, started with controlling the freed slaves and blacks. But it isn't limited. Gun control isn't limited to controlling minorities. In 1911, New York instituted their Sullivan laws, aimed at disarming the Irish through licensing and registration. Well, what could be harmful about licensing and registration? Nothing if you don't mind giving up your rights. No harm at all. And we all know what good licensing and registration does with cars stopping drunk drivers, don't we? It works real well. But in New York, in 1911, and to this day really, but basically back then in 1911, when it came to getting a gun, the Irish need not apply. Over the years, every time a madman goes out there and commits murder, Congress is chomping at the bit to get out there and give us more gun control. Again, as if more gun-free zones are going to make it safer. And it just doesn't work. But they try it, and we have been doing a very good job in this country over the last 10 or 15 years fighting off gun control. In fact, thanks to your efforts out there, we have actually done a whole lot in turning that whole train around. And yeah, you guys deserve a big applause. I mean, this nation is freer today than it was 15 years ago because of your efforts. But during the years, little by little, a right that was not supposed to be infringed was infringed. In DC, right where we stand, it was infringed to the point of virtual disarmament of the citizens of DC. And if you know DC, you know that this is one place where you really need a gun. There are just places you really want to be careful if you ever go anywhere near them. Of course, while DC citizens were being left helpless, sitting ducks by their government, the government itself was busy arming itself. The government never has a problem arming its own employees. If you get a check from the government, getting armed is no big deal. If you don't, getting armed is a big deal. And to think that a paycheck stub would make such a difference. And it's all part of the hypocrisy that goes on in government this way. In Virginia, we now have a law we just got passed that repeals the restaurant ban. That was a big one. 13 years in the making. And before that in Virginia, you had to carry your gun openly in a restaurant, and you just couldn't conceal it. Now we can conceal it. But now we have two classes of citizens in Virginia. If you're an off-duty police officer, if you're a Commonwealth attorney, you can carry concealed and you can drink. We're not allowed to drink, but they can. That's two classes of citizens. So what I want to do next year in the General Assembly is I'm going to put in two bills. Well, I can't, but we'll find somebody to put them in for VCDL. One bill will say that nobody but an officer doing undercover work can drink alcohol while carrying concealed. And the other bill will say anybody who can carry concealed can drink if they wish, as long as they're not drunk. Now you might say, whoa, that's two opposite ends of the spectrum. But what they have in common is whichever the General Assembly assumes for its policy will apply to everyone. Police officers, permit holders, we're all under the same tent. And so I say, General Assembly, you choose, but whatever it is, we're equal. But this whole idea of government arming itself, that's the very scenario that our founding fathers warned us of in their writings. Is that the president come by to say hello? But the founding fathers pointed out that when the government does that and disarms all of us, that's when tyranny's roots get planted. And we cannot have tyranny in America. We have to stand up and fight that. Over the last 15 years, gun organizations across the nation, in my case like the Virginia Citizens Defense League, other organizations across the country have all stood up and have been fighting to get our rights back. And they've been successful, as I said earlier, thanks to you guys getting up and doing your part as these organizations plow the new ground of getting our rights back. Rights that were ripped away from us by politicians and corrupt courts that felt that they could ignore the Constitution and ignore the very people they represent and do just as they please without that pesky little Constitution getting in the way. Yeah, that's New York. Ladies and